Good morning. Welcome to Finding Friendship. I'm Kelsey Forey. I'm the Alumni Education Programs Director at the Notre Dame Alumni Association. I work on the Hesburgh Lecture Series and Think Indie and lifelong learning opportunities like this one on campus every year at Reunion. If you're like me, you may follow a couple of priest influencers on social media who serve as chaplains to Notre Dame's football and basketball teams named Father Nate Wills and Father Pete McCormick. When they announced the launch of their podcast, PodQuad, last fall, a space for captivating stories from the heart of the Notre Dame community and inspiring interviews with guests who share fresh perspectives on life and faith, we at the Alumni Ed programs knew that it was an idea whose time had come. And then when we heard the first episode about finding friendship, cultivating the life-giving relationships that we all need to lead fulfilled lives, we knew we wanted to capture that lightning in a bottle and share it with our celebrating alumni and their loved ones at Reunion. We're so grateful to have one half of the PodQuad dynamic duo with us today. Co-host Father Nate Wills is here, along with two very special guests who we'll introduce, to spend an hour leading a casual conversation about all the things that matter. Take it away, Father Nate.
Great. Thanks so much, Kelsey. It's great to be with you all today. I'll introduce our guests here. I don't have anything written down, so please correct me when I get things wrong, but I'll introduce our guests. So April Garcia brought her own fan club. April Garcia has been a longtime friend, is a graduate of the ACE program, originally from Texas, and continues to just be a great faculty member in our Remick leadership program. She last month just finished her doctorate. And we're so excited from the SC inside. But she's been a longtime friend, a great friend, and she happens to have the office right next to mine at work too. So we're not only friends, but we also need to work together, which has just been a great gift for us. Okay. And then Father Greg Haake, also a great friend, and we graduated from Notre Dame together in '99. He went on to get his doctorate from Stanford, no big deal, and continues to be a great linguist. He's a French professor, a tenured French professor here at Notre Dame, and recently took kind of that gig, sort of a part-time thing, as well, probably like two full-time things, as he became the superior of our religious here at Notre Dame. And in that capacity is now on our board of trustees, to the board of fellows and all this stuff. So
He's like kind of a big deal.
so, but most importantly to me, he's a great friend and has been a great friend for a long time, and originally from Kansas City. And yeah, we have all these connections. Father Greg and I were class of '99, like I said, so we're kind of uninteresting in that we're not the, we're 26 years, yeah. But April is class of 2005, and so this is a big reunion for her. So that's nice. Some other class of 2005 folks. So thanks for that introduction, Kelsey. The podcast that Father Pete and I do called the Pod Quad. Look it up, get it on all of your whatevers. There's actually a video version on YouTube and then just an audio version on Apple and then Spotify and all that stuff. We finished season 1. We'll see about season 2, whatever. We'll figure it out. But one of the things we talked about was the importance of friendship and the way that friendship is evolving and difficult and challenging, but life-giving and all these things that we think is really important. A lot of this, Pete originally had the idea to talk about friendship, but I think we've all been thinking about this a lot. I remember helping set my mom's Facebook account up, and she got it. You fill out her profile and everything. I'm like, oh, okay. So now you add friends, and all these things started popping up, and I'm like, yeah, you can just add your friend there. And she's like, that person's not my friend. And I was like, Mom, it's not like friend. It's just a Facebook friend. And she's like, I don't understand. I'm like, you know what? I don't think I do either. And I noted the fact that like this is a complicated reality that in many ways social media and modern culture has co-opted this idea of friendship and what it means to be a friend. I can't help but think it's interesting that there's been an evolution of on Facebook you have friends who aren't really friends, but they're kind of friends. But it's probably a lower tier than like Christmas card friends. But I can't help but think like another instantiation of social media with Instagram, you no longer have friends, you have followers, right? Like I think just Jesus has followers. Right? But it's interesting that there's not even an illusion there of friendship. So maybe just to kick us off with that question, for both of you, and I guess I'll chime in at some point too. Talk about like what does friendship mean in this era of social media?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the follower situation, and now I'm like, "Oh, yes, will you follow me, please? Please don't." I mean, you can if you want to, but I do think when it comes to social media, and in particular, it's a great way to stay connected. I talked about it before. It's a way I kind of get a sense and glimpses into people's lives. You get a sense and glimpses into mine. But I also think, and one thing that I really struggle with is this notion of like what I post. And I was just talking to friends, real people, friends about this. Like what I post also is just like snippets of my day or snippets of my life, which can sometimes, I think, also give this perception of like, this is April's life. She has this gorgeous cup of coffee. Her cat is doing something cute. Look at this beautiful plate she made. My food. I'm like a food kind of person that posts, or I post food. But I also think that misses then the mark of like, how am I actually connecting with people? Because, and I have a sweet friend who noted one time, she said, and the moment she realized that she was starting to post things and think, how many reactions am I getting? How many comments am I getting? Who's commenting? Who's putting a heart? Who's not putting a heart? Like we kind of missed the mark that almost I think about Facebook, which was naming people as friends. Like at Instagram is much more as like a follower, or like you think about LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever you want to call Twitter now. I just think like it kind of misses the mark of actual human connection. And it's more like, I'm going to show you, look at this very manicured, beautiful life I have. And the reality is I might be sitting in my sweats, like watching another TV show with no makeup on and not so perfectly manicured. Like I think that's just my thing about social now that I find myself being more cautious of. Is like, yes, we're connecting, but it's one kind of snippet of my day.
Well, it definitely has its social conventions, and it's when we see a friend, and one of the we talked about this. We had a long time before we did this, but one of the things we talk about is living here in South Bend. You know, so many people come to South Bend, and we see them on campus. Run into them on campus. We haven't seen them in 10 years, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in so long. And you know, there are certain social conventions that kind of come along with having not seen someone for so long, or even in your day-to-day actual friendships, the ways you interact, they're just things that you do as friends. And so when I was thinking about the social media thing, I was thinking about this idea about how there are conventions that go along with that, some good, some bad. I mean, at least they're paying attention to you. I mean, that's, you know, at least the likes or the comments. But at the same time, the conventions, especially, the thing I always say to the students is that social media, AI, Zoom, it all flattens everything. That's the word I always, because that's how I perceive it, is that it flattens everything. So, you know, when you have those little likes or comments, they seem a little bit more formulaic than they would in real time or real life, or they seem a little less tied to sincerity or real emotion. So that's one of the things I think you always have to worry about when it comes to social media is, okay, I'm observing the conventions and that's great because there's a connection and I'm staying in touch with this person. But at the same time, that authenticity or lack thereof, you always have to attend to that.
Yeah. Yeah, the dialogue part, you really lose that because it can often be just a one-way, conversation to say like, oh, I just posted this thing. Now people are going to comment about it. And every once in a while people will, reply to a comment or something, but it's more just kind of like, here's my thing. I often think about my friend Trish had this great insight about social media. She said, social media makes us think in many ways that, or makes us question, why is everyone else's life a highlight reel and while my life is a blooper reel, right? Like, why does it happen that way? I think we get these images of curated people's lives, and thinking about sort of the ideal of people's lives. And I think there's something nice about connecting with people, but it's also, a trap for us because we get stuck in that idea of comparing, right? Of comparing our lives to other people's lives. The thief of joy, right? This is a Teddy Roosevelt prophecy set.
Yeah.
And religious life,
Brene Brown.
well, in religious life, we call it the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not compare. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was like, said here first.
it's no, it's a chapter in my book.
Stop it.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, just by the way, I'm
Well, and it has a book coming
yes,
out. Yeah.
coming out.
Should I mention that?
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes. So pray like a champion today coming out. Thank you. Coming out that's also my Instagram handle. It's coming out in the fall. Sorry, sacred colon. It's pray like a champion today colon sacred stories from the sidelines of Notre Dame football.
all great titles have
A call.
Oh,
just
I don't
like-
have to.
like-
You absolutely have
Right?
to. It's
Yeah.
Forward by Marcus Freeman.
no big deal.
no big.
John,
I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
Just so y'all know, I think
Let me,
we're like
uh,
friends.
set up.
If you all are like legit friends too.
So do you think yeah, that's right. So yeah, I think that really the idea of authentic connection is really tricky in a time of social media. I think there can be a lot of maintenance of friendship, but for me at least, and I think a lot of this is generational too, right? There's different expectations. I know I was talking to my niece and she just gotten in like some kind of discussion with her friends because I think she didn't repost something that somebody had posted. And I was like, I understand many of the things that you just talked about there, but it's just different, right? Like the expectations are different for her than they are for our generations. And so I think there's a need to connect. And my hope for people on social media is that they use it as a way to continue conversations and continue friendships so that they can meet up in person and have that in-person connection. Because as you said, Father Greg, I think that in-person dialogue that brings things into real life in the 3D. I think we all learned during the pandemic that like, oh, having the Zoom social hour is great.
It's exhausting though.
It was exhausting,
I was
right?
like, I just spent 30 minutes staring at your face, but I wasn't staring at your face. I was actually staring at my own face on the screen. It's just I think like it's not, and I love that idea of like it flattens things because I want to interact with you and I want to talk to you and I'm looking at your face, but I can't. One, also Zoom lets you filter a little bit now. So is that really what you look like? I can't tell. It's just not the same kind of human interaction. And I do think we were just talking about this yesterday. It's an idea too, when you are in person, it's almost like you should notice yourself using your device less. Like I don't have pictures with I don't have a ton of pictures of what happened yesterday with the second row of humans over here because we just weren't taking pictures at the moment. And it's like, because you were trying to dive into actual human dialogue and connection and not being like, oh my God, can we take a picture of us laughing right now? Like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that it brings up a really interesting point about like, what is our relationship with those devices too? And is it only, happening because we've taken a picture or something like that? And I often will come back to this Sister Helen Prejean, who's just here for Sacred Graduation. She has this great line. She says, I watch what I do to see what I believe. And I often think about when young people, or it's not just young people, when people have their phones like sitting next to them at a meal or something like that, and it's just sitting there, right? There's a bit of, for me, there's a feeling of like that they're waiting for something, that they're anticipating like, oh, they're waiting for a better offer, right? Okay, this may be my insecurities. I want to.
like, do you want to lay down?
Yeah. Did I say that out loud? But it is an interesting thing to see, like, watch what I do to see what I believe, right? Like, the number of times where I am saying, okay, look, I'm willing to put this away and be totally present to you, like that evinces a belief, right? Of like, that this time together is important. And I think we have to we have to fight for that more and more. Like I can put my phone away and then still look at my watch and like, oh, now I've got a notification there, right? Like I don't fight all that stuff because the pings, the little notification, that is an actual dopamine rush. Like, scientists talk about this of you getting a bit of a hit from that stuff. And it's really hard to fight that. It's hard to fight the notifications of like, ooh, somebody sent me a message. Well, my mom. That's okay. I'm just kidding.
Is she watching this?
I'm not. I just talked to her this morning. It's fine. It's fine. I love my mom. But I think we have to fight more and more for quality time with our friends. And, there can be pictures remembered, but to make sure that's not always mediated. Okay. Sorry. Next question.
Yes.
Talk about the way that your friendships have evolved over time.
That's a big one. As I was talking about earlier, people coming to South Bend, you don't see them for a while, or they come for a football game, you see them at a tailgate, and you haven't seen them in years. And this is always a very interesting thing because you have these moments that you shared in undergrad together, and they were great, and you were around that person every day. I mean, this is one of the things I think about is I was around this person. This was my roommate for 3 years. I lived with this person for 3 years. It's amazing. But he has his own life now, and I have my own life now, and it's diverged and it's very different. but the way in which we try to connect and make sure that we're checking in with each other and that we maintain this friendship that we shared a lot in those three. I was an RA my senior year, which is why I didn't live in it. But we shared a lot in those 3 years, ups and downs and difficult days and great days. And so you have that connection with this person who really knows you well, even though you may not see him that often. So it's that shared experience that you have together is food for the friendship to continue. But at the same time, it just looks different. You're not around this person every day. Just time is and distance are things that force the friendship to evolve, and you get different things out of it. And of course, you put different things into it in order to maintain it and cultivate it. But I think that there's a certain beauty in that because your lives are different and you're both having your own experiences and you're fulfilling your dreams and you're doing what this place, Notre Dame, was meant to have you do, which is to build a life and for the sake of the kingdom, in my opinion. But anyway, so, so you do that and you kind of launched into that. But at the same time, what forces that friendship to evolve is that divergence, but it also makes that time together interesting when you can share about that evolution or about that divergence that you've had.
Yeah, I think it's also recognizing, and I say this and I'll speak for my or not one of my many identities, but one identity as a woman. I think as relationships change, it's also so much shaped by what does that look like in terms of family? What does that look like in terms of kids? What does that look like in like I'm navigating my identity, they're navigating theirs. And I do think that the evolution part, like we obviously we had something in common to begin with. That's why we became friends, because I saw you, you saw me, and we said, there's something here, that spark, the little cheese spot, like the spark of goodness within the two of us. So I think sometimes it's also recognizing how can I go back to that moment, knowing that I'm a different person, you are a different person, but we had something. And I think Notre Dame in particular, I was just listening, it was in our office because we were talking. I overheard a conversation about our graduate students who are coming to campus in a short period of time. Father and I will be very ready for them. But they were talking about the Notre Dame experience of putting people into dorms, and I heard someone in our office, they just put them randomly, and it's like, and I was like, yes, well, I believe it's providential too, But she's like, but what if, and I said, well, I'm sure there are things, you don't want to put someone you're going to have a whole wing of people from California. I said, but the reality is, I do believe it's just the grace, it is the grace of God. I said, I'm just saying, I think there's a little bit of something happens in there. But I do think it's this idea of amidst those differences and amidst the uniqueness within the individuals, there's a universality of we all came here to this space, or we had this shared experience, or there was something that was in common from the start, that when you kind of get past oh, I have a very cute cat. Oh, you have 3 kids, or you work a very different job, or I still don't really know what your job is. I don't know what most of my friends' jobs are, just so you know. I make them up and I make them sound cooler. But I do think that it's it comes back to what is that core. And I believe here at Notre Dame, we can always come back to there was a reason we chose to come here. And that experience of being in a dorm or my commitment to South Dining Hall. I just think those things are just so core to identity. But you kind of have to find your way sometimes back. And in the conversation, as you bump into someone on campus, it's it's a little storytelling that happens, I think, too. Remember that time,
I want to add something or comment on something you said. I think it also, especially with the random assignments in the residence halls, that it shows that sometimes friendship isn't always based on affinity. It can be based on experience or community, the community that you're a part of, and that it develops out of that. And it's this person, if I had met this person randomly on the street, would I have ever become friends with him? I don't know. It's tough to say. But after sharing that experience, residential hall life together and sharing a room for 3 years, well, of course you've learned how to, if there were any wrinkles in the relationship, you've learned how to iron them out, or you've learned how to live with this person and appreciate this person who was randomly placed in your life to live with you every day. So, which when that comes out of my mouth, it does seem a little weird, but it is true. And so it is really I don't hate to, but I'm going to make it religious. But it is this idea of connection with other human beings that is, to a degree, a choice. It's a choice to love your neighbor. And friendship is a deeper expression of that. But that choice can really turn out to be a very meaningful relationship.
Yeah. I think that's really great. I like this idea too of our our interconnectedness, as the mystical body of Christ. Like I think that we get a sense of the ways that we're connected with people who we wouldn't otherwise choose when we're thrown in with something like a random group like we are in the dorms. I mean, I think we all probably share this same experience of like being assigned to a random dorm with random people. Father Greg and I still live in dormitories. I live in Keel Hall with 270 young men. They're awesome, but they're hilarious and fun and interesting too. And I really appreciate the way that Notre Dame does that, kind of randomly assigns people into dorms, because you see that sort of unintended diversity that of people saying, oh, the guy down the hall from me is from Guam, and the other person that I just got to know is an engineering major. Like, what is that? And I think there's a real bonding that happens because of that. And I did grad school at Wisconsin, and I saw their fraternity and sorority system that they would like. There were times when they would all like parade around, and I noticed like they all look alike. When they're on their like little convertibles and whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh, like is there like a blonde girl sorority or something? I don't know. But interestingly, I think given the choice, sometimes we'll go towards people that we have so much in common with, or, kind of like superficial affinities. And it takes something like this dorm system where you kind of break that down and say, like, you're now assigned with this person who, may or may not share your likes and dislikes, your cultural heritage, your
Politics, your religion.
really important stuff, right? And I think it reminds us of our interconnectedness, of our presence within the mystical body of Christ, of the challenge of like just saying, get along with people, right? Figure it out. Like you said, you have to negotiate and navigate challenges and all this stuff, which is a huge life skill. And it can be life changing too. I think about my older brother who got randomly assigned to a roommate who was a computer science major from Tennessee. My brother was a pre-med major and who was a walk-on to the basketball team from Minnesota. They had like nothing in common, right? But he met his roommate and they became friends. They roomed together all 4 years. And because of his roommate's dad, who's an orthopedic surgeon down in Tennessee, my brother got excited about being an orthopedic surgeon and is now an orthopedic surgeon. So like it changed his life. Yeah. And I think that's just incredible. Okay, to the point about friendships evolving. I think this is such a tricky one because like I as a person tend to hold on to friendships. Like I'm really hesitant to let friendships go. Like I'm still subscribed to Columbia House. Sorry, that was like a Gen X.
That was super. That was great.
Do you know that your money is being wasted?
Just kidding. I love the taste. No, I'm really hesitant to give up on friendships. And it is the case that sometimes in life too, just things evolve. And I think we have to get over the guilt that certainly I feel of like, oh my gosh, we're not as close as we used to be. Right. Like, and I don't know big things in your life right now. I mean, the other day I saw my freshman year roommate from college. He just came to visit. And I'm like, I don't know how many children you have. And I don't know the number of children that you have. And he sends me a Christmas card every year. But like, it's just hard. You lose touch. And I think we can't feel guilty about that because people come into our lives at different points, transform our lives. And it's not a bad thing to say like, and that was a moment. That was a chapter, right? And to say we can kind of keep going forward. And I think these moments, as you said, to reconnect with people at reunion are such a beautiful mirror for us of our lives of thinking like, oh, this is the person, the person that I was. And now through my experience in life, I've grown and I'm still that person, but we're all given the opportunity to evolve, right? And we're all, I think, have the permission to grow and become, better, more alive versions of ourselves through our experiences, sometimes through suffering and the challenges that we experience. So, okay, so thank you. Appreciate the evolution comment. So, talk a little bit about the time when a friend of yours has challenged you.
Yeah. A time?
Honestly, just like once.
How has that affected your friendship? Or, I mean, because it's a tricky thing, right? For somebody for you to challenge a friend is like, there's a potential that you might lose that friend, right? And then there's a potential that they might just walk away and be like,
I actually rely on this. So I mean, I don't know if we ever had a moment. I'm thinking of a particular friendship I had where, I don't know if there was ever a moment where we said, okay, we're going to challenge each other. And, he has an opportunity to see me in my life day in and day out, and he knows my flaws. And so he's able to say to me at times, Greg, I don't think you handled that super well. And I'm totally comfortable with it. And I do the same for him. And it works for us in that friendship. And that's not the only aspect of our friendship, but I guess we have the love between us and the trust between us in order to do that in a way where we can not only give that feedback, but also hear that feedback and in a way that's helpful. So, I mean, I appreciate that very much. And I don't know, I wish I could say, oh, this is how I did it. It just, speaking of evolutions, it just happened. And just after being together, this is a fellow priest, I've already crossed that. But so, so it just, after a while, this was something that we offer to each other in our friendship. But I very much appreciate it. I mean, I don't know if any random person came up to see you, I might react to it differently because that love and that trust isn't there. And so, I mean, I think in the context of that, that might be an essential element or essential elements in that friendship that allows that to occur in a helpful way.
I think we need this in a different way too, as priests, because we don't have spouses, right?
Right.
Of people who, and maybe this is the role your spouse plays in your life, of somebody who sees you and can challenge you in those moments.
I mean, I need Nate to tell me when I have food on my face.
That's true.
Cheat check. But I think that's becomes more important for us as opposed to someone who's married.
Yeah.
That's a step.
Yeah, I think too, I recently was just thinking a little bit about like this idea of self-care and like I just need to worry about me. And I think this push also social media, this magical bubble water I'm gonna have in the morning with a lemon in it is gonna really just cleanse me and I'm gonna be so good and take care of myself. But I do think that the self-care, one thing I really pushed to myself, I mean, if you were thinking about a person, is having friends who also are willing to actually care for you, but friends that you're willing to allow yourself to be cared by. Because self-care is like, I'm worried about me, worrying about me. It's like, no, as a person who just needs to be cared for, like I should allow people to care for me. And I think I have a friendship that also kind of connects to a friend that I feel just really says like, hey, I'm just gonna like check you a little bit on this, or say, hey, it's not even so much I don't think you can handle. Like, I don't think you're actually protecting or caring for yourself in the way that you seem to be caring for others. And I just want to name like you did this and this person did that. I recently found this thing on Instagram that said there are two types of people. There'd be, I feel bad about this, and then you have the other friend being like, but does the other person feel bad about it? And so I think sometimes it's like the guilt of like, I'm not being my best self. And I'm to also have a friend that's willing to say like, no, you're doing great. Or if you're not doing great, name like XYZ, like these are the things you need to stop doing. Or these are where you keep showing up for this other friendship or this other situation. I'm just going to call you out and maybe say, let's step back. You're putting a lot of effort forward and it's not coming in from, and are you happy right now? And I'm like, I don't know. Okay, if you can't answer, then I don't think this is really like life-giving to you. But I do think when it comes to friends, kind of being able, I think if someone else said that, I would just be crying. Like in this case, I'm crying, but I'm also like nodding, like, yes, I should be nicer to myself. Yeah. Versus a random stranger.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea. And I think it's really important for us to have friends where we can constantly bump up against things a little bit. Like where they don't, it's not based on challenges, but they can help us to move a little bit, right? Like they can nudge us to grow. And I think it's
Hard to be that itself.
yes,
Exactly. Yourself.
exactly. It's a tricky balance, right? Of like how much do you nudge and how much do you push and how much do you just accept the person for who they are. And I think what you said, Greg, is really important. Of like if you can ground all of that in love and in a trust that they know, like I know that this person loves me and I know what they're saying, even if it's a tough thing, comes from a place of love. I think that's the key there. And I don't know. I think about my sister's really good at challenging me at moments that and I think we have that love because we know we're stuck with each other, right? We're like, okay, yeah. But she's also my sister who's become one of my closest friends because of her ability, her thoughtfulness, because of her care. And she's like, sometimes when she's saying something hard to me, she'll like hold my hand and she's like, okay, you need to hear this. Here we go. So it's like, how bad is my haircut?
Yes.
but it really is, it's important, I think. And to your point about the evolution of how that ends up going, I don't know if you can, I guess it comes about when you invite that, right? And say like, maybe not in this moment, but at some point, I empower you to challenge me, right? And to give that feedback, I think, because it's really important. Okay, so what are some examples in pop culture, in media, in whatever, where you see really helpful friendships or really good examples of friendships, and why do you think those are really good examples?
I'm happy to kick us off.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
Because I think
please.
you both have like, you were very hyped about this.
I was very
You
happy
were
about
very
this
hyped about
question.
it. So
It's a
there's
good question, right?
it's
Yeah.
a great question. Also, I think it's like it kind of starts to think like what are types of friendships that you like really want to or find or see yourself in. There's a movie called Booksmart. There are two women who are in high school and they love each other. They are obsessed with each other. But they also do this beautiful thing of like hyping like the other person up. Like she walks out and she's like, "You wear this." Like she's trying to try on like a new outfit or a new idea. It's such a like high level of hype. But I also think they have and spoiler alert, like they have a way that they, even as they navigate a separation, like how they're going to continue to support one another. And that's the way I like to show up for friends. I like, if you tell me I'm going to do this thing at this time, I'm like, I will be there, or I will make sure to send you 7,000 text messages, or I will find a way to hype you up. Like that's the way I appreciate friendship. And that's the way I appreciate to be like given back. So I think for me, like Booksmart, being a hype girl, like, I just want to like show up for the person. Like, obviously, yes, please do the pre-order of the book. By the way, also submitting, there's going to be a book coming out at Father Greg. Hey,
Okay.
I'm not writing a book, the two of them, but like, if you tell me something about you, I want to hype that up. And I feel like that movie really does a beautiful job of like honoring a person and like just saying like, you are the best thing. And just like, I mean, who doesn't like to hear that? But I think who also doesn't like to hear that from someone that you know is actually telling you the truth. Yeah.
You're very good at that.
Thanks. Thanks. I tried through the wall just to go like this. When I think he's doing something big, it's excited voice.
I mean, I like the truth telling. I mean, use that as a segue because the example I thought of, and when we first talked about this, I said, "I'm gonna have to think about this for a while." But then it almost after we finished that conversation, it came to me was did anyone see that this now movie people aren't watching it as much, but Master and Commander. I mean, yeah, with Russell Crowe, yeah, and Jack Aubrey and Stephen Mattern, which is
It's a book, right?
series of books,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, that friendship is because they tell each other the truth. That's a really and they're obviously in a very high pressure situation, and they're battling the French, which isn't this great. But anyway, the well, it's the Napoleonic era, but it makes it exciting.
Which I can tell you all about.
Yeah, sure. But their friendship, at least as it's depicted in the movie, is great because the things not only do they tell each other the truth, they're willing to sacrifice themselves for the other. And in this very short 2.5 hour movie, it really depicts that friendship in a way that I'm like, yeah, that's definitely an ideal of friendship for me because they're both who they are. They both tell each other the truth, and they're both willing to sacrifice for each other. I think that probably sums it up for me.
Yeah. I love that. I was thinking of, I love the show Parks and Rec. And like anything Michael Schur does, I was love it.
Sebastian.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we are in India. But there's this show and it has like this really overzealous director of Parks and Rec that Amy Poehler plays her. And she's just like so much energy. Know anybody like that. But he's like overly thoughtful to people. And at one point, her boss, this guy, Ron Swanson, who's just like, tells no one anything about his life. He values his privacy. He's like grumpy about everything. And she finds out when his birthday is. And he's like, oh God, no, please don't. And everybody's telling him what she did for their birthday. And, it's like, oh, she kidnapped me and brought me to Senior Tacos and we, had put the sombrero on. And he's like, oh God, I don't want any of that. And in the end, it's funny, the episode, again, spoiler, the episode ends with her getting a steak from his favorite place and setting up this conference room with his favorite scotch and putting a guard at the door so nobody gets in. And so he can watch Bridge Over River Kwai by himself alone. And he's like, what is all this? And he said, I thought you were going to do all the stuff you did for Anne. She's like, no, that was an Anne Perkins birthday. Why would I do an Anne Perkins birthday for Ron Swanson? And I think something about that Something about friendship to me is to be seen and loved. And I think there's a real beauty in someone seeing you, understanding who you are, and loving that. And I think that's, to me, that's the heart of a great friendship. And I think that's what you see in that moment, that she saw not just what he liked, but more broadly who he was and what he values, and was able to meet him in that moment. And I think I see that and value that from my friends as well, that they see me and they love me. And they love me enough to challenge me sometimes, but I do think I love that notion of just being friends in that way. We talked as well about the kind of Frodo Sam
Yeah.
friendship in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, there you go. And I love that notion of friendship too. There's this one moment in Lord of the Rings when, Sam's carrying this ring of power and Frodo says like, I can't carry the ring for you, but I can carry you, and like picks him up. And like that to me, I mean, it's such a powerful moment, and it was delivered so beautifully. I think that's often the way I experience friendship too. People, carrying me through moments where I can't carry myself, and they know that they can't remove my burdens, but they can accompany me, right? Like the Pope Francis notion of accompaniment, I think is so powerful, and something that I think resonates with a lot of us.
Can we do a counterexample?
Yes.
Ooh.
I
that's
know.
funny.
I remember that.
Oh,
Yeah,
all right.
counterexample.
Now we're talking.
I mean, I've recently, I don't know why, I've been watching old episodes of Friends,
Oh,
and I'm like, I don't think these people are really friends. I don't think they really. Well, they just seem pretty narcissistic, and I mean, I know that they sometimes tell the truth to one another, but I mean, it just seems it's just a very strange. You can tell that there's definitely a dynamic between those actors that makes the show work, for sure. But as a model of friendship, which is ironic because the name of the show is Friends, but as a model of friendship, I'm not sure that it works. It's funny. The dialogue is very witty. And I didn't notice this when I watched it the first time around, but they do a lot of homage shows. Like they do a show like in the style of Three's Company, and they do. I didn't know they did that, but they rewatching some of the episodes, I recognize the illusions, which is what I do for a living. So that's kind of nerdy. But anyway, but as a model of friendship, I don't think it works.
I would say any reality TV show at this
Oh,
point.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
it's a line on reality TV show. I didn't come here to make
I
friends.
didn't come
Right?
here. Yeah, it's my the little line as I'm holding an apple or something.
yeah.
Yeah, I do think that so much of like reality television, because I'll talk about that. I won't even name the shows because I will allow you to just imagine things that sometimes I watch on TV. But I do think like sometimes you're like, and now we're gonna end the season, and I feel like we've grown closer. And I'm like, have you? Because I saw all like I think it's again it's and we talked about at the start, it's so much of like presenting like we're friends now. We're such good friends. Like, no, you all talked a lot of trash about each other all season, and you're doing it for the likes and for the promo deals and all those pieces. I think
They made so much money.
they made
together.
so much money together.
Yeah.
If we made money together, would we be closer?
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't think so. But yeah, it's about so much about, I think, promoting individualism and not necessarily. I think like that's a good counter example.
Yeah.
Just put on Bravo.
Yeah.
I know what we're talking about.
Okay, good. I just was like, I'm embarrassed to say it for the crowd, but no, by the way, I sometimes watch Real Housewives. So the record has shown.
That's awesome. So we're gonna open it up for questions here in just a minute. But yeah, I'm trying to think of counterexamples that
Won't embarrass
there's
you?
so many. Yeah, right. There's so many. No, but I think you're spot on in that they full of like friendships of utility are always the ones that like drive me nuts. Where people, are kind of asking like, what can I get from this? And
Natural nature.
I often encounter this. So my work with the football team it's just beautiful and awesome. The guys are really great. But I realized pretty quick that like everybody kind of wants something from them. And this is one of the challenges that I think a lot of them face is that they encounter people who are like, oh my gosh, this is so great. You're so great, right? Can you sign this thing? Can you leave a voicemail for my friend? Can I take a video of you? And they're always encountering people who just want something from them. And in that light, it's really hard to form authentic friendships. So they end up being like friends with each other. Or I mean, there's actually I've done a number of weddings for football players who have married people that they were friends with in like grade school or high school that they grew up in the same hometown because they know like this person isn't just friends with me because of my fame or my whatever. They don't want something from me. They know who I am. They want to be friends. And so I think that this is not from pop culture. This is from like real life. But I think that's a counterexample to me of if you're asking, what can I get from this person, then it's not a friendship.
Yeah. And I would say, and I'm just a person who works here. I would say I feel, and I imagine it happens to you too. Like, I think it also being on campus in and of itself, like, I think about the number of times that somebody has casually reached out to you and said, do you happen to have those national championship playoff tickets? Remember that one time we talked? Like, that one time we talked. I'm just wondering if that one time we talked and we had that one discrete experience, if you just happen to, I don't know, let's just say by the grace of God had 2 tickets. I feel like you'd want to give them to me. Then I do think that transactional nature, and I know obviously being a layperson on this campus, like, affords me often the opportunity just to kind of, I mean, I put a baseball cap and I'll keep walking. No one knows who I am. Versus like, I just think that the presence also of like that identity of being a Holy Cross priest on this campus, like, yes, you have your handle. Yes, you have a book coming out. You also have a book coming out, and you have a big role in this, big deal. And you have a role on this campus, but like, you also have other identities. And as we think about that transactional nature of even being on Notre Dame's campus, which is beautiful and gorgeous and lovely, I think to just be aware of that too. Like, I just think about the number and the absurd requests that come through your office at times.
Admissions.
Yes, admissions. Oh my gosh. So you're not going to get insert name into Notre Dame for us next year?
No.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Great. Well, let's just take a couple of minutes for questions and people. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
I have a mic for you.
Oh, look at there's a mic coming for you.
Coming with the mic. Yeah, right behind you.
Right behind you.
We have, okay, here we go. We have a friendship with about 30 guys from Notre Dame. It started 57 years ago,
Woo!
Fantastic.
and we're close. We've been close all this time. We went to the University of Innsbruck together, on behalf with Notre Dame. Recently, some of us hit a dip. And like you said, there's blow off. There's people looking at one another without love. It has to do with the recent politics. And,
Yeah.
how do you handle that? Is there hope to get through that? Does it pass? Or how do you read that?
So we actually did talk about this. This is a great question because I mentioned that I have a friend from undergrad who he wasn't my roommate, but we were very close in undergrad. And his politics has definitely diverged. I mean, I don't know how he would characterize it. I'm wondering if he's watching this. But anyway, no.
You know who you are.
No, he does. And we kind of know. And I think that, frankly, we just don't talk about it. We can still talk about, fortunately, we could still talk about faith. We can still talk about family. We can still talk about our work to a degree. And so I think we've just circumscribed that area, left it aside, and realized that it's just not going to be fruitful for us to talk about that. And the thing is, I think, are mature enough about it at this point to say having discussions about this area of our life is not essential for us to continue our friendship. Now, not everybody is prepared to do that. And so I think that, I think it's more of again, it has to go back to what we were talking about earlier about you just, at a certain point, and this is part of the evolution of friendships, at a certain point, you have to make a choice of what matters and doesn't matter.
Yeah, because getting an openness, and I just, where you think about social dialogue and the ability to dialogue, and I think like Pope Francis Fratello Tutti like leans in so much of like the way you can interact and talk to others, that you can say, we're going to talk about this and talk about what we have that is common, but then also the ability to say, like, I actually don't think, and I think it's either a matter of we're just going to put that off the table, or if we cannot find common ground and the other party cannot just put it aside for a moment, then maybe we're just going to, this is going to move to a much more social situation. We're going to recognize like what boundary do you want to have. But I think there's also beauty in honoring and saying, like, I would rather end this friendship right now in the way that it exists than to continue to kind of drag it. Like, I just think, like, I want to leave a situation and say, I have no hard feelings. I'm just going to, like, I still wish this person the best. I still want what's best for them. But if you can't find the common ground, you can't put it in a situation And I do think it's not just around like politics, obviously, but there's like such polarizing ideas. Like it's very hard to find common ground in all kinds of things today. But if you can't say, where's our commonality here, or the person's not open to like the type of dialogue that Pope Francis like so beautifully discusses in Fratelli Tutti, like just to be open to one another. You kind of have to sometimes, I think, call it. And I think that's the hardest part. I think we grieve the loss of people, like the physical loss of people. We grieve the loss of beautiful like relationships. I don't think we have a society that opens us up to allow us to grieve the loss of a friendship. Like it's like you're not over it, and I'm like, no, I'm still really sad about what happened with this friendship. I don't think we give ourselves the space. There are sympathy cards of like, I'm sorry you broke up that friendship. Like those don't exist in the Hallmark world. Like I just don't think we give ourselves space to grieve that type of loss too.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, I don't think there's a simple answer to it because I think at the end of the day, we have to ask our friends too to say, is that so core a part of who you are that like that nothing else matters, right? And if the answer is yes, then like, okay, well, we're probably not going to be able to have a productive conversation because we're on two different levels, right? Like, yeah, Elsa back there just died, wrote this book after Virgin and talked about conceptual incommensurability, right? Like where people are talking
Say
at
that 5
different
times fast.
yeah, people are just talking at different levels, right? And when you're talking at different levels and not actually dialoguing like you're talking about, and the only answer is to like raise your voices. Like you're not hearing me. This is what I'm saying. And people just start shouting at each other because they're talking on two different planes of existence. And so I think it's really important in some of those moments to call it out and just be like, just, we got to say here, we've been friends for 57 years. Like, can we find a way forward that doesn't involve, like having to defend which news show we watch and I think often that just that immediacy is really important to just say, can we actually talk about this elephant in the room? And I also think, I don't know, for me, humor diffuses a lot of stuff. I mean, I think it can just sort of bury things sometimes. But also to just be like, oh, come on, I knew you would say that. I knew you would say that. I don't often think politics are helpful to talk about in like a friendly way. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if we're talking about politics, we talk about politics. But if you have a limited amount of time, right? If you have limited things, I just don't think like, oh my gosh, my opinion on these deep-seated beliefs have been changed by your Facebook post.
Yeah.
I never said.
I have seen the light.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Thank you for sharing that
0 time.
video.
Yeah.
Yes. Totally different about insert topic.
Like it just never happened. So I don't know. I think we have to just be honest about that too. So thanks for your question. That's really helpful. Oh gosh, we have all kinds of questions.
I know. We're gonna come.
Sal's just gonna find it.
All right. I'm wondering about the ideas around competition and friendship. So I've got an 8th grade kid and it's like what are the flies in 8th grade. So and so my wife and I was like, find positive friends, be a good friend. But in our lives, competition has driven us to be better friends, better at our jobs, as long as it doesn't get negative, right? Too much. And frenemies, trying to define frenemy to an 8th grader is like, he's like, oh, that's everybody I know. Yeah. So I'm just, you don't get on the Notre Dame football team without being competitive. How those guys stay competitive and stay friends and move towards a common goal and kind of be positive for each other.
Yeah.
This is one to me that could go either way. I mean, my friends in high school, and I remember we played Risk once. And then we never played it again because we realized that we couldn't handle it. Now, maybe there was like maybe freshman or sophomore year in high school. But I mean, so, you have to be, your friendship has to be on really solid ground before you go down that road, or set up.
Like, do you play Risk now?
Yeah. I'm not sure we could.
Okay.
No, I'm not sure. Anyway, so, I think it can go either way. I think, a subtle competition might work, but I can say I definitely have had friendships deteriorate over competition in my life. And because we just couldn't get past it. It was just too, so I think, yeah. I don't know.
I think I do think this is a tough one. And I think that's a great question, especially about how do you form your kids? How do you teach them what's appropriate and what's not? To me, one of the things is I think competition is good in the moment, right? And I look at our football players and I see the ways in which they are constantly pushing each other and saying like, I know you can do more and blah, blah, blah. That's really helpful. And I think in the moment, that's a really positive and good thing. I think in the end, the real challenge is, can you be a big enough person to see other people's wins as not a zero-sum game?
Yeah.
Right? Like, can you see another person's victories as like, you know what? I'm so happy for you in a sincere way, and be confident in yourself enough to say, other people can have victories, and it doesn't mean that you're less of a person, right? That you're losing. If they're, and this is tricky because I think this has got to be tricky for parents. I'm not a parent, but this has got to be tricky for parents to say, other people's victories don't mean your losses. Because other people are doing well doesn't mean you're less of a person. I think that's a big developmental thing for kids to recognize we can all win. We can all do well. And the level to which you can teach your kid to celebrate other people's victories and to say like, I'm so happy for you. That is really awesome. And I think people are often surprised by that because we adults behave so badly so much of the time, right? And are just so like terrible about that. They're like, I can't believe that person got the promotion. You're like, oh, that's a good thing for them. There's not a limited number of promotions in the world. I think in as much as we can teach them to do that, I think you are taking a twist on competition that can be really helpful.
If I can again speak about faith, this is where the role and mystery of vocation comes in, is that a little competition might be good for motivation to once again help you to become the best version of yourself, but also thinking about your life and your journey and your achievements as part of your vocation story, that this is who God is calling you to be, and that it isn't at the expense of somebody else. You have your own story. Follow your own story and encourage them and help them to follow their own story. And we're all called to be who we're called to be, and we're all making a contribution. And one person getting into Notre Dame and one person not. I don't mean to take it back to business, but this is so often where I encounter this, especially in my friends from undergrad whose kids are now all coming up and coming into Notre Dame. Those who get in, those who don't, and then they it doesn't mean you're a bad kid. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a terrible life. It means that this is not part of your story coming to Notre Dame, or maybe it is if you are coming. But that goes for so many other things. Not winning this award is part of your story. So we have to figure out how that fits. And so that it's a question of discernment and faith.
We're out of time. I want to just leave this with, I think I remind just to add on to that, I remind our student athletes all the time that win or lose, they're a beloved child of God. That's who they are at the truest and their most core. And nothing that you say or do in life can change that. And so to rest in that identity, I think is really important. So.
And also just like remind yourself of that. I just think like so much of that. Yeah. As we remind the children that whether they're in your home, those in your office, but I think it's sometimes just reminding yourself that every day too. Like, I am beloved, I am seen, I am valued, and I'm worthy of love and worthy of friendship as well. Yeah.
I want to say thanks to our panelists today. Thank you very much for a great conversation. Have a good day. Go Irish.